Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rakakadash, and double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace, love, and salutations to the hopeful elect. This is your brother Dawadah from the Men of Valor campaign, Greenville, South Carolina, coming back with another video on sincerity and in truth, and Lord willing to keep edifying. And just some breaking news, all right, covering what's going on in the world. They've officially, done the releasing of the hostages and the so-called end to this Israel-Gaza war, or so they say, all right, which we know prophecy prevails, and Trump is over there, and they're parading this as like a time of peace, all right, just like we knew they would, all right, just like they knew they would. And I actually want to start with a scripture, Isaiah chapter 48 and verse 22. There is no peace, saith the Lord Yahweh, unto the wicked. All right, short, sweet, to the point. All right, who is the wicked? Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. Okay, who the Lord has called the border of wickedness, and the people, not just a person, not just Esau, but the people against whom the Lord have indignation forever. So these Edomites will never know peace. Okay, they can claim peace all they want. They won't know peace, man. All right, so let's read this. Zeroheads.com. Trump proclaims end of age of terror and death after Hamas released all remaining hostages. Now, interesting enough, this is not the end of an age of terror and death. This is probably the beginning of the age of terror and death. Well, a new phase of it anyway, because since Esau's been in power, it's been nothing but an age of terror and death. Okay, what Israel has done to Gaza, killing the people. Esau has been doing this shit for centuries, man. The only difference now is that it's documented, and it's, they weren't fully able to control the mainstream media's narrative. They weren't fully able to control all the different narratives coming out, that weren't mainstream, okay? Because you turn on your TV, Hamas is bad and all this stuff like that. But, every time I would turn on, go to the X app, which is Twitter, you see, little children getting their arms blown off, women and children dying every day, men dying, all right, all type of things, and questions will be asked, all right, on this whole October 7th thing, and how a country, who knows that there's enemies all around, allowed, for some paragliders and shit to come in and so-called do what they did. But nonetheless, people are the Israelis themselves, that want Netanyahu out of there, they're going to ask these questions, and ultimately we know another war is going to get started, because they, this guy, Bibi Milkowski, he's wanted, all right, for war crimes, all right, in multiple countries, man, the major countries. So he would have to continue. Either this is they're going to continue. They got the hostages so they can fully just decimate that land, or they're going to, start back fighting Iran. And it's going to take the focus off of what really just went down between Israel and Gaza. OK, so we'll see. So it says, in a historic day, Hamas has released on all remaining Israeli hostages following the 2 years of war. 20 in total have been released, with an initial 7 handed over in the first wave, followed by 13 more. 28 additional deceased captives are expected being returned, though there are reports that only 4 of the deceased have been transferred back to Israel at this point. In return, 250 Palestinian prisoners serving long and life sentences are now being released from Israeli prisons as part of the first phase of the U.S. brokered deal. Additionally, over 1,700 Palestinians being held without charge are to be released. Regional reports say of the 251 hostages seized in the October 7, 2023, Hamas raid on southern Israel, 20 came out alive today. All men. None of the captured 76 women and girls made it out alive. Okay, and that's what they're claiming. Now, at face value, that sounds fucked up, but you got to understand that the Israelis require women to be in the military. All right, so you have a large female, soldier presence there. So, there could be some civilians, but I'd say probably most of them might have been, soldiers. We'll see. And you can never really trust what this devil fully says, man. It says, Israeli media observed that many of the hostages, some of which haven't so much as been photographed in 2 years, are looking noticeably thin. And they were also forced to wear a quasi-military uniform as they were set free. Several videos have already featured teary-eyed reunions of hostages with their parents, families, and loved ones. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held the freedom of all the remaining hostages in speech before the Knesset, also vowing to keep the peace. All right, this devil's lying. Mr. President, you are committed to this peace. I am committed to this peace, and together, Mr. President, we will achieve this peace, he said. He declared today marks the end of 2 years of war. Again, let me read the scripture again. Isaiah chapter 48 and verse 22. There is no peace, saith the Lord, unto the wicked. All right, and B.B. Milkowski is about as wicked as it gets, man. All right, of the chief house of Amalek, who occupied our land. All right, you pissed the Lord off, man. All right, you are not the people of the Lord. But nonetheless, let's keep going. It says, President Trump, having touched down on Air Force One in Tel Aviv hours before, who addressed Parliament in Jerusalem and was thanked by Netanyahu for his pivotal, that word always trips me up, pivotal leadership in putting forward a proposal that got the backing of almost the entire world. Yeah, because they wanted y'all to quit, just killing these people, man. Of course they wanted that war to end. It says he said of Trump's ceasefire plan that it brings all of our hostages home and ends the war by achieving our objectives. And is also, and remember, don't they want that oceanfront property? Are they going to return the land that was given unto the Gazans, the Palestinians, back to them? No, they're going to occupy that land, man. They even sent U.S. soldiers over there to reinforce this so-called peace deal. All right, so we're going to see what comes of that. It says it also opens the door to historic expansion of peace in our region and beyond our region. That Netanyahu has publicly proclaimed the end of the war as a crucial development. Proclaimed that the end of the war is a crucial development. Has been much speculation on this point and whether Israel's military will actually withdraw. Yeah, that's a big question, and they won't. They might stop bombing them for a while, but their presence will remain. With Trump seated beside him, Netanyahu said, "This is your first visit to Israel since you recognized Jerusalem as our capital and moved the embassy here. Thank you for recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights." He then claimed, "Thank you for standing up to the lies against Israel in the United States." What lies, man? All right, what lies? There's only truth, being spoken about over here. You are not the people. If you were the people, there would be no war. Let's prove that real quick. All right, the Lord said when Israel goes back to their land, there's not going to be any more war. Isaiah chapter 2 and let's see. Yep, verse 1, it says, the word that Isaiah, the son of Amos, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. And it shall come to pass in the last days, that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established at the top of the mountain. So Israel will be the governing body of the world. All right, is that so now? No, they do it by way of deceit, and espionage and blackmail. But the Lord is going to establish this. All right, not the the Balfour Declaration? I think that's what because the country of England, all right, helped establish, as the Israeli or the state of Israel, so to speak. All right, not the Lord. Verse 2 again, and it shall come to pass that in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established at the top of the mountains. They're going to be the world government. They're going to be established order. All right, there's not going to be any more religions, people doing their own thing. No. Okay, everybody's going to be keeping the laws, statutes, and commandments of Israel. Is that happening now? No. It shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow into it. All right. How is that possible when Israel at this point right now is surrounded by nothing but enemies, people that want to kill, that don't want the Israelis there? Interesting enough. Verse 3. And many people shall go and say, come ye and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the power of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways. Is anybody beating down these Israelis' door outside of American politicians, asking them to teach them the ways of the Lord? No. Okay, they read that Talmud, which is not biblical, it's not scriptural, and it's wicked as hell, man. It says, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. So the law is going to be established. Okay. Is that established right now? No. So how can y'all be the people? Verse 4. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Now, we're in the time of Joel, the 3rd chapter, where they're going to beat their plowshares into swords and pruning hooks into spears. So right here is going to be reversed. So, all the weapons and shit are going to get destroyed, when Israel gets established. The true Israelites. And it says, and the spears and the pruning hooks, nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. So at what part, all right, do the Israelis fit any of that? Okay, they don't. They don't. It says, President Trump took to the podium and receiving a standing ovation proclaimed, this is not only the end of a war, this is the end of the age of terror and death and the beginning of the age of faith and hope of the Most High, or they say of God. He's so full of shit, man. All right. Which in a sense, we are entering a time of faith and hope, in the Lord, but not for you Edomites, not for you nations, not for you damn heathens. This is our time for hope and faith, for the elect. All right. And our faith in Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. All right. But this is only the beginning of the age of terror and death, man. Jacob's trouble is about to get lit. There was 2 more mass shootings. All right. That's Jake involved. Another one in some island over here, in South Carolina. Or near off the coast of South Carolina, where like 4 people died, 20 got injured or something like that. There was another mass shooting over there, I think in Mississippi or something. And there's a lot of shootings surrounding these HBCUs. All right, and there's some weird shit going on, because they're gonna paint this as just like niggas being niggas. But this last one that happened yesterday, they're saying like it was like a weird signal or some shit that went out. So they could, Jay could be getting actively targeted right now by different private militias and all type of shit, man. You can't put nothing past this devil. All right, but this is the beginning of the age of terror and death, not the end. So what is Trump talking about? Like the scriptures say, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words softer than oil, but yet were they drawn swords. So as you can see.
Uriel!
You see it. It says it's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. He stated, I believe that so strongly that this is the historic dawn of a new Middle East. No, y'all niggas about to go to war, man. Because the scriptures say that the least of the flock shall draw them out. So this, things might cool down for a second, but they're getting ready to take down Iran, because Iran is the last so-called Middle Eastern or so-called Arab nation that is a risk to their sovereignty over there in the state of Israel. All right. They already got the Saudis, they got the Qataris, and they got, they've conquered these other lands in the region, but Iran, who still has proxies in Lebanon, proxies in Yemen, they're still very much a threat. Now, Iran ain't gonna be the one necessarily to go and try to attack Israel, but Israel is going to, do some shit to bring Iran, into another direct conflict. And guess who's gonna be there to help them? All right, Russia and China, man. All right, so there's your World War III, set up right there, man. All right, and America has his hand in every major conflict. All right, over there with NATO and Ukraine. All right, with Taiwan and China, with North Korea and South Korea. All right, you got America in the midst, and then with this. So don't be deceived. Let's get to scripture. Here we go. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 1. It says, "But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape." So they're saying peace and safety now. All right, so hey, for us, we look over, we looking. We're walking circumspectly. We're monitoring this. We're on our watchtower. Because, hey, we know that these damn Israelis going to draw these nations into World War III. We just don't know exactly how it's going to be done yet. That's what we're watching for. But we know when it gets on and popping, it's on and popping. Now, World War III won't fully break out as far as nuclear until the MOTB is established. But we're seeing that's being set up quickly as well. So, we're in a time of continuing to watch. All right, things are getting dangerous. All right, you got ICE deployed, in different U.S. Cities. And they're not leaving. You got the National Guard being activated against U.S. citizens. So we're in a time of distress, anguish, calamity. All right. But Yahweh Bashim al-Shah said he's going to protect us from this. Economic turmoil. People barely able to survive. It's getting desperate out here. And when people have nothing to lose, they lose it. So there's just so much happening on all fronts right now. All right, but just wanted to cover this news, all right, since it is breaking news. And to, we know when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them. So we know we looking for something to happen soon, man. So with that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rukakudash, and double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace, love, and salutations to the hopeful.